Okay, we are live. Welcome, everybody. We are here tonight with Al Richards from The Other Side of Addiction. I'm sure you guys have seen his podcast. It's posted all through our groups. If you haven't seen it or watched one, definitely check it out. So Al's here with us tonight to kind of hang out, and I haven't actually heard Al's story yet. So I figured we could kind of do that together, and I could get to know Al with you guys. So Al has kind of an interesting story. Al, if I'm not mistaken, your wife is the one who suffered with addiction, correct?
Yes. Yep. She's the one that battled alcoholism.
Oh, it's incredible. So we have a lot of, Al-Anon members and people who kind of obviously feel and suffer from addiction just as much because they're loved ones. So I am super excited to hear this story. Hello, Barbara, sister. Happy to have you here. Okay, so let's delve into your background just a little bit.
Okay.
Nothing too serious. I'm a little nervous. I'm trying to get into this a little bit, but for our viewers, why don't we just kind of tell everybody a little bit about your background, some of the values maybe you were raised around?
Yeah. So I was brought up in like a little farm community, probably about 7 or 8 miles outside of downtown Salt Lake City. My parents moved out there from the city back when I was about 9 years old. So I'm dating myself. So that was back about 1971.
Yeah.
Loved growing up out there. We were surrounded by alfalfa and wheat fields, pheasants everywhere. um, my my family life, I had brothers and sister, but we were all 7 years apart. So I was 7 when my brother was born. I was 14 when my sister was born. So being the oldest, but I really didn't come from like a really loving family. Never really heard my parents say "I love you." We wasn't told very much about how proud our parents were of us, but they did teach us some really good values. Taught us how to work hard, deal with a lot of things. A lot of people who have known me for years didn't even know until I started speaking that I was crippled when I was a little boy. At the age of 7, I caught a disease called Perthes. It's like a form of polio.
Wow.
And they told my parents I'd probably never walk again. And they still did a surgery and things. But yeah, long story short, had surgery when I was at 9 years old. On my 9th birthday, was in a body cast for 2 months. And my left leg was just like a stick. It was shriveled up to nothing. But you know, um, as they say, like in AA and other recovery things, there's a higher power that's out there that's greater than you. And I had this dream, and um, when I had the dream, my mom woke me up, and I was actually standing on both my feet and looking out our back door. And I couldn't even walk back; she had to carry me back. But anyway, kind of a long story short. After high school, I ended up working for a manufacturing company where I
Mhm.
spent 24 years and really enjoyed it. 98, I was transferred to Bowling Green, Kentucky to help get a plant up and going. And I was going through a pretty nasty divorce, and I didn't want my girls around all the arguing and the nastiness that happens sometimes during divorce. And so when I was offered the opportunity, I took off to Bowling Green, Kentucky, loved it there. But I wanted to get back to my girls. I have 2 daughters, and fate have it, things started working out, and I got transferred back here. My ex-wife and I now we've grown up. We are good friends. So my wife, my ex-wife, and my daughters and their family, we all sit down for Thanksgiving dinners, and it's very civil, and it's really nice for for my daughters, to see that their parents can sit in the same room and have a civil conversation.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's just a little quick background of me.
That's amazing. It takes a lot of work and patience to co-parent and to get through
Yeah.
all of that. But it's beautiful that you guys are able to kind of, have that family dynamic still. It's awesome. Love to
Well, we learned it. It's not our differences. It's we did it for the kids.
hear.
We didn't want our daughters to be around where thought that they saw that their parents did not like each other, because we liked each other at one time. Heck, we had 2 kids together.
Right. Yeah.
So we finally grew up and brought that together and said, hey, let's make this work because of the girls.
Which is a beautiful thing. It's we don't really think about it when we're in it, how stressful, to our children that is in the moment, that separation and the fighting, and they feel like they have to choose sides, and it's very stressful for children. But
Yes.
to grow through it and to see you guys come out the other side, that's beautiful, and it's amazing, and it's a wonderful example to set for your children. So rock on, my friend. Okay, so pretty awesome values. You are an overcomer, obviously. Polio, I mean, wow, that's phenomenal. Wow. So okay, so then let's talk about addiction. Why are you so passionate about recovery?
Yes, that is a really good question, Amanda. When I met my wife, I had already been married a couple times, and I decided, hey, I'm not going to get married again. And the job that I had was an extremely stressful job. I had 43 employees underneath me. I had all kinds of projects. I mean, I was over packaging lines, outside maintenance, parts room, housekeeping. I had a lot of stress. So my weekends were spent, I would work usually 13, 14-hour days until Friday. On Friday, I got out of there right at my 8 hours and got on the phone, called a dealer up of mine and grabbed some cocaine, and stopped at the liquor store. At the store, grabbed some beer or whiskey, whatever, and I'd go home. And even during the dating, my wife had no clue that I was doing coke. Because we were drinking together. We'd have friends come over and play games or cards and different things like that. Well, I did this for years, every Friday and Saturday, and then Sunday I'd get my act together and go back to work and put everything into my job. And Friday came, and it was the same hamster wheel, day in or weekend, every single weekend. And I ended up losing my job. And I lost my job due to a false drug, to a drug test.
Right.
And I hadn't been drug tested in years. Now, if the old owner still owned the company, I probably would have got like a week suspension, a slap on the rear or on the wrist, and come back. But a new company had bought his company, and I was made an example of. And during that time, I'm like, you know what? I think it's time to figure out who I am as a person. And it was kind of like the tipping point, because that was in 2009. After 3 years of dating, I finally proposed to my wife, and we got married in May of 2009. July of 2009, I lost my job of 24 years. August of 2009, she lost her dad to a heroin overdose. And things just started tipping. So basically, I was going the other direction, and she was heading the opposite direction.
Oh man.
And things just kind of it got bad. I just noticed her starting to drink a little bit more. We used to still have parties over our house and throw darts and have a fire and things like that. And I started noticing that instead of mixing a drink, she just started grabbing the bottle and just guzzling it out of the bottle. And that went on for a while. And then eventually we lost our house. I used all my retirement to work on trying to keep our house. Eventually, they did get it from us, but gosh, I just started watching my wife go through this battle, and I started watching her turn into somebody that I didn't know, especially when she was drinking. And she's just this little gal. She's 5'2", weighs 115 pounds, and didn't take a lot of alcohol to start changing her.
Right.
And she was going to rehab, but she was going to rehab for the wrong reasons. She was doing it because I was pushing her to do it. And now that I know, being on the other side, that's something you don't do. It's got to be something that they got to be ready for. But us on the other side, what the hell do we know? We don't know anything about addiction. We think we do, but we don't have a clue. Mm-hmm. So long story short, my wife ended up getting well for a while. She went 13 months sober, and then we were doing a stay vacation at a hotel, and It got to where I could have a couple cocktails by her, and we were playing cards, and I went in and went to the restroom. When I came out, she hurried and put my glass down. And I was like, what the hell did you just do? Did you just take a drink of my drink? And of course, she got all defensive, and things just went to shit, if I may say that, right after that. Shortly after that, she got her first DUI.
Oh, no.
Then she got thrown in jail. Then she got thrown in jail again for driving on a suspended license. She got another DUI. Our relationship was nothing but a screaming and yelling match on a daily basis. She got to where she wasn't going to work, and I always got, what the hell I'm not hurting anybody, just leave me the hell alone. I'm not hurting you. And it's like, yeah, you are. You're hurting our finances because I need you to work too, But yeah, she just got to where she was extremely bad. And I ended up becoming addicted to her addiction. I spent almost every minute to where I didn't even want to leave the house because I was afraid she was going to go get drunk. And pretty much that's exactly what happened. Every time I left, came back home, by the time I got home, she was so hammered she couldn't even stand up. Again, that would start a fight. Coming up on almost 3 years, it'll be 3 years in June. I was coming home from an event, and I had finally made my mind up that I was going to come home, get my pistol. I was going to go up in the mountains, and I was going to take my life because I couldn't deal coming home to what I was coming home to every day. And I didn't know what I could do to help her because everything that I was doing, all it did was just put more fuel on the fire.
Right.
And luckily I got a phone call. And when I hung up the call, on my screenshot on my phone was a picture of my 2 daughters and my 3 grandkids. And I literally just broke down and started bawling. I was crying so hard I couldn't even see the road. So I pulled over, and I don't know how long I was there bawling. And I'm like, there's got to be something that's got to change. Something has got to change. And I didn't tell friends. I didn't tell family that my wife was an alcoholic because we're just ashamed as well. And we don't want people to judge the person that we love.
Right.
And I called a friend who worked for the West Jordan Police Department, is where I grew up, and she helps a lot of our first responders who are thinking about committing suicide. And I said, Holly, I need some help. I don't know what to do. And she got me directed in the right place. And God works in mysterious ways. I came home that day, and my wife was hammered. We started getting in a fight. I ended up calling the cops. They arrested her. They threw her in jail. And that time that she got thrown in jail kind of helped me get things back together.
Right.
But it was still a battle back and forth for a few more years. I started speaking about it in 2020.
Wow.
I had a friend say, hey, you should share your story because you could help a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
So I did a couple speaking events, and 2020, everybody knows what happens in March of 2020. COVID hit, all events stopped.
Right.
But something kept eating at me all through 2020, and I couldn't figure out what it was. And the more I started thinking about it, I'm like, I keep hearing people talk about podcasts. I'm like, I don't even know what the hell they are. So I started doing some research and started going, oh crap, this is what podcasts are.
Right.
And I just started thinking about it a little bit more. And a gal that was following me on Facebook, her name's Lori Warburton. She lives in Ogden, which is like about an hour drive north of Salt Lake City. But she was following me on Facebook and seen some of my posts. And she goes, I want to meet you. Can we meet for coffee? I'll drive to Salt Lake. And I'm like, sure. So she drove down, and we started chatting. She was at the time 4 years recovered of alcoholic. And we get chatting, and we realized that we both had this dream about sharing our message and helping other people. And again, I don't know how many people believe in God or your higher power. To me, it's God. But
Mm-hmm.
he just started placing people in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
And next thing I knew, I meet Brad, who is my producer. He has a radio station, and I sat down and met with him, told him what I wanted to do. And he goes, whatever you need, your studio is mine. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So I wanted to get the message out, and the passion was there so much is because for me, who didn't have the addiction to think about killing myself,
Right.
how many other people who are on the other side who have loved ones that they don't know what to do, how to help them, and it's driving them crazy because there's nothing they can do, are thinking the same thing. And I'm like, I don't want that to happen. Somebody to take their life and take themselves away from their grandkids like I could have done, or
Right.
their children, their family, their friends. So yeah, once I did a couple shows, I think after the second show, I knew right then and there, like yours, pain and purpose. I knew that was my purpose. I'm like,
Yes, sir.
this is what I want to do. And things have just taken off from that. And I was a guest on a podcast a week and a half ago. And the gal asked me what kind of therapy I use to help me heal. And I said, I'm really glad that you asked that question. I says, my therapist is my podcast. And
Yeah.
she goes, I don't get it. And I'm
Yeah.
like, people who come in and be our guests and they share their story, it helps me understand addiction a lot more than I ever did. I get to know who these people are. I get to know their pain, their suffering that they dealt with. How many times they stacked a Band-Aid on top of a Band-Aid on top of a Band-Aid to cover up whatever was hurting them. And even my wife, when I first started it, she goes, "You're just doing this to make me look like crap."
Oh.
And she goes, you're just making me, but she was still kind of coming out of her addiction.
Right.
And I don't know, probably about the third month or so, she came into the studio with me. And I get emotional talking about this, but we leave the studio, and on the way home, she looked at me and she goes, "Babe, I understand why you're doing this. Don't stop. You just keep going as much as you need to go. You say whatever it is that you need to say." And in October of last year, actually on Labor Day, we were out for a walk, and she said, "I'm ready, babe." And I'm like, "You're ready for what?" And she goes, "I'm ready to tell my story with you." And I'm like, "You've got to be kidding me," because I never pressured her.
Right.
And in October, we sat down, and my co-host was the host that day, and her sponsor was our guest co-host, and they both interviewed us, and it brought us even closer, which is cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, why don't we have her here tonight? Like,
Yeah.
what a beautiful story. Wow. I don't even know where to start. That was amazing. Yes. Marty says, Al's story gives me hope. I'm 9 days sober and knowing that I can do it. Congratulations, Marty.
Yes, Marty, you can do it.
Yes.
When my wife finally decided she was done, I mean, she said, I am done. I heard that many times. I didn't believe it. But each day that went by, I started seeing a different person in her. And here in, what's today, the 2nd? So in 7 more days, the 9th of February, she hits 14 months sober. And it's just such a blessing and so incredible. And she loves life right now. She is just loving life. She gets to see our grandkids again. She had court last Thursday, and she walked in, and since she has been clean and sober this long, the judges dropped all her cases. She is no longer on probation, so we don't have to have the probation or the I guess it's the probation officer showing up, knocking on our door anytime they want to, so she's like, there's another stepping stone. So it just keeps keeps going. So Marty, man, keep fighting, buddy. It's worth it.
Yes. And that, well, you're fighting the stigma, right? And that is why, because there are judges who will see the effort that you're putting in. They will see the hard work that you've done, and they will pay attention and celebrate that with you and for you, because we all know somebody. We all know someone who's been in it, right? And it's torturous when you're on the other side of it. It really is. My husband, we've been together for 12 years, and we were married through my crack and heroin addiction. And it was that, right? Listening to your story, it was, I mean, I did a lot of terrible things and robbed him and emptied our savings accounts, and sold everything. I had to lose my children. He had to remove them from my care. I was not even allowed to talk to them for an 8-month time span, and it was devastating. But it was everything that that I needed to get my shit together, right? So the things that he went through and overcame through that are just as powerful as the addiction, right? And it's so empowering. I just love hearing that you're telling that other side of addiction. It really is beautiful. Awesome.
Thank you. And congrats to your husband, because you know, for sticking it out and believing in you. He had to have believed in you, and the love he has for you helped him stick around, you know. So that's an incredible man right there.
Yes. Dr. Terry Sellers also, he said that to me. I was thinking about it as you were talking about your wife. He said to me once something about my husband that spoke wonders about who I am, for him to have been able to forgive me and all of that. And I was thinking about your wife like that, right? She must be a wonderful woman to have, you know, been worth fighting for like that. You fought for her and fought for your family, and you guys were victorious. So
yes, and it's worth it. That's for sure.
Yeah. Now you guys have 3 beautiful grandchildren and an amazing story to tell. Wow.
Yeah. You know, what's really cool too about this is we had a gal on our show who works for a recovery center, and I reached out to her and I said, hey, do you have like family nights where people can come in and share stories? Because, you know, I'm working on wanting to get more speaking gigs. And she says, oh, yeah, Al, we do. You know, we've got an opening here the first part of December. Would love you to come in. But she goes, let me ask you this. She goes, would your wife be willing to come up and share with you? And I'm like, I'll just have to ask her, because I don't answer that question for her. And I asked her, and she goes, let's do it. And it was so cool to be standing up for the very first time with my wife right next to me, instead of her sitting out in a chair listening to me and watching me. We were there together, and we shared the struggles that we both went through, you know. And I wasn't innocent. I wasn't innocent at all. I said a lot of mean things to my wife. You know, I accused her of a lot of mean things, and it was just the anger, not knowing what to do, you know. And I tried the hard love, and all it did was make things worse. And for me, and again, I'm not putting Al-Anon down, because I have a family member that goes to it, and it's the best thing for her. It just wasn't for me. It just didn't work for me, not knowing any of the other resources that were out there for me. And now I have this opportunity to be a resource, to let people know, hey, we're going to have specialists come on come on our show, talk about childhood trauma, or you know, just talk about learning how to forgive. And that was one of the biggest things that I had to learn. I had to learn how to forgive myself for the nasty things I said to her, so I had the strength to forgive her.
Mm-hmm. Which is a battle all in itself now. So if there's someone watching, which I'm sure there are, and they have a family member struggling with an addiction, and they're, you know the life, you know the battle, the struggle, let's give them some advice for this moment.
Okay. Well, what worked for me is whatever's happened has happened. It's in the past. Understand that they're fighting a battle that you know nothing about and you will not get it. So stop trying to understand until there is a time down the road where, where you can. But I ended up letting my wife know whenever she was sober how much she meant to me and how much I loved her. I didn't say it to her when she was under the influence because they don't believe it anyway. She didn't. But I also let her know that anytime she was ready, that she could count on me to be there to help her get through whatever she needed to get through, because everybody else had pushed her under the rug. Nobody else wanted anything to do with her. So just let them know. Let them know how much you care for them and how much you love them. And one thing that really helped me with my wife is I stopped throwing daggers at her because I realized she was already full of them. Instead of saying, you continue to do that, or why are you doing this, I started using more I statements where I started saying, when this happens, this is how I feel. This is how it's affecting me. And she started really starting to understand what her addiction was doing to me. So yeah, just put your arm around them, man. Tell them how much you care for them and love them, and they will get sober or they will get clean when that time is right. Because if you push them, all you're doing is pushing them further into the addiction.
Wonderful. And yes, it is. We know, right? We know we're doing wrong. We know we're, doing the wrong things when we're doing them. And it's unconditional love is something that a lot of people don't feel they are worthy of. And you can unconditionally love somebody while they are in an addiction and still maintain a level of boundaries
Yes.
to protect yourself, because you will be sick with them. Their addiction will influence your life. It will affect the reactions you have and the ways that you respond to being hurt. And it's super, super important to just remember that. It's all about the management and boundaries. So,
And I'm glad you brought that up, Amanda, the boundaries, because I went to almost every AA meeting with my wife to be there to give her the support. And there were a few times I was so mad at her that I'm like, yeah, what the hell good does it do? But I heard him talk about boundaries many times. I didn't realize that I needed to set boundaries too. I kicked my wife out many times. There were times she slept on the street. And it was really, really hard for me because I would be up all night thinking I just kicked my wife out. She's drunk as hell. If she comes across the wrong person, they'll grab her, they'll rape her, that they could throw her in a ditch. She wouldn't know because she was so drunk.
yeah.
But when I started letting her back in, I started setting boundaries. And I'm like, you have a roof over your head, you'll have food in your stomach. I will be here to give you a hug, a kiss on the cheek whenever you need it, as long as you are sober. But if you start drinking again, you give me no choice. I cannot have that around me because it puts me in a bad area. You will just have to go. And just grace of God, man, things just started working. And yeah, it's just worked out.
It's so important. The more I listen to you talk, the more I think about all of the things and the ways that my husband was suffering through my addiction. And it's so, we don't talk about this, right? We never talk about this. It's so important. So if you're watching and you are on that other side of addiction, there's a really cool podcast with Al here you guys can listen to and learn some things and learn about some other people's experiences, because you're not alone. And wow, it's torturous, right? When you're in that and you have to think about how difficult it is to ask your wife to leave your home, right?
Oh yeah.
Like how difficult and how much courage that takes to even come to that conclusion, because you're still caught in the illness as well and the addiction as well. And that's the last thing you want to do, because part of your sickness is trying to control theirs, right? And
Yeah.
so telling them to leave when you have absolutely no control over that is probably one of the hardest things to do. So
Yeah.
I'm glad you're talking about that stuff, man.
Yeah, when she was at Phoenix Recovery, her therapist met with me once to do a session, and she told me, and this was probably about the second year that she was really in the depth of her addiction, and she goes, "Al, there's not a damn thing you can do to help her."
Yeah.
And I says, "Oh yeah, you watch me. I'm gonna prove you wrong. You're gonna eat those words, and I'm gonna prove it to you." And I just kept getting on that hamster wheel, doing the same thing over and over and over. And it took me another 2 years. And I finally went, holy shit, she was right. I can't even help myself right now.
No, and that 2 years could have very quickly turned to 10.
Yeah, could have.
Same way, right?
Yep. Yep.
For sure. Okay, let me get to some of these comments over here, you guys. Barbara, just celebrated 9 months sober, January 25th. No one can make the decision for you. When you are done, you will make the decision. All my loved ones tried for years to save me. I had to do it. I am so glad your wife made that decision.
Thank you. And congrats on the 9 months. Way to go, Barbara.
Yes, man. 9 months, 9 days. That's a good one, you guys. There's some similarities there for a reason, I'm sure. I needed to get sober. For me, I was unhealthy and really hating myself. I knew I needed a change. Yes, Marty. Keep it up, my friend. Nicole says, my partner is not an addict or an alcoholic. I know how proud he is of me without him even saying anything. His actions towards me are so different now. He's happier. And I know I did that just by doing something for me. It's an amazing gift.
Yes, it is. Yeah, that is so cool. That had me smiling as I was reading it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yes, you guys. Awesome. Charles, keep it up, my friend.
9, 15, 18. That is awesome.
Yeah. There's some comments in here. I guess that's what I'm struggling with the most is finding resources, talking to people, and finding a group to connect with. Well, Marty,
wow.
It looks like you stumbled upon the right podcast tonight.
Yeah. And let me share this too with Marty. With the way social media is, there's a place called Clubhouse. And I had a friend tell me about Clubhouse, and you can download it on your phone. It's free. You can go in there and find a group with almost anything there is. So once I downloaded, I typed in addiction, and all these groups started popping up, and it's people from all around the world. I was talking with people from England on the podcast. Of course, they were the ones starting it, so the time difference was kind of a barrier. It was hard for me to get to a lot of them, but you can find support groups on that. You can look up Craft Family Support Group, and they're based out of Utah here, and they will actually, if you get a hold of them, they will actually deliver your books completely free. They go through a program. They do now they're starting to meet in person again, but they also do it through Zoom. But you can do a Zoom and you hear people who are in the exact same spot we're in, where we have somebody that we care and love that's battling an addiction. And it's just a really good resource to hear people's stories. And the stuff that you read out of the books, they do a chapter every week. And you start reading some of these chapters and you're going, holy shit, this sounds like what happened to me. You know,
Nice story.
how did they handle it? And you really get engaged because you're like, oh my gosh, this happened to me. What did they do? What did they do? So
Mhm.
yeah, there's quite a few groups out there. You just got to search.
What was the name of that first platform you said?
It's called Clubhouse.
Clubhouse.
Yep, Clubhouse.
Great. I like it. I every human needs a support group, not just people in recovery. I think
Yep.
everyone should find a support group and find their people because they're amazing. So Marty, that was some pretty good referrals. I will be checking out the Clubhouse myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, these online communities are a lifesaver, especially right now, with COVID and all of the stuff that's happening out there.
Yeah.
So yes, we also offer support meetings here, Marty. We have an online community of people from all walks of recovery, and we just do recovery. So you are welcome to join us anytime, my friend. I will drop our support schedule in the comments of this once we finish up. Awesome, my friend. Wow. This was an awesome story. I thank you so much for coming on and sharing. And maybe we can even convince your wife to come on and share sometime.
Oh yeah. You just she would love to. She's really getting into it. She was actually my co-host today on our two podcasts today, and she's really getting into it. She's like, once I find a job, I'm actually going to miss coming to the studio and doing this. So, and I would like to send an invitation out to you too, Amanda, or anybody that's on. If somebody would like to come on and tell their story, please reach out. Please reach out to me. Guys, I look at it as it's a blessing. Anytime anybody reaches out and wants to share their story, it takes a lot of guts to be that vulnerable, to tell an audience of people where you were at one time in your life. But it's also so empowering. Some of the comments that we get from people, it's like, I love watching the show because the vulnerability and how real. I mean, I look at myself as a man, but man, I'm not afraid to cry.
That's
You saw
right.
that a couple times here. Sometimes we do a lot of crying on our show, and a lot of times we do a ton of laughing and joking, but it's serious because we just want to help people. The same thing that you're doing, Amanda. You just want to help people.
And you are. The stories being told are what is causing people out there, like judges, to recognize the stigma and the things within their own minds and build awareness around it. And the world and recovery is completely different than it was 5 years ago. We've made leaps and bounds, and it's very important to remember that, to keep moving in that direction. So yes, share your story, you guys, because the more it's out there, the more people know that they're not alone.
And it's possible. I mean, you can do it. It's not going to be easy. As my wife said, it's not easy, but it's freaking worth it.
It's so worth it in every way. So yes, you guys, check out Al's page and The Other Side of Addiction, and check back, because we will be hearing from Al's lovely wife soon enough.
Sounds good. And Amanda, let me know if you're interested too. We'd love to have you on.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. I will get with you sometime this week. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing tonight.
Thank you, everybody. Greatly appreciate it.
Awesome. All right, guys. We'll see you later. If you need anything, just reach out.